Welcome to Sisters and Law. I'm Judge T.
And I'm Rosalind Charles.
And we're here today with this week's conversation. Our conversation this week is what everybody's talking about, and that is
Puerto Rico. And what they're not talking about
is the U.S. Virgin Islands. St. Thomas, St. John, and St. Croix. The United States Virgin Islands and the United States territory of Puerto Rico is in dire need of help. And the 45th has gone on 11 days, and the islands are dying.
Yes. I think that most of the same issues that are occurring on the island of Puerto Rico are also germane to the U.S. Virgin Islands. It's just that nobody's talking about it. And I wonder why. I don't know why. I do know that everything, all the relief, or at least the ships that typically the U.S. Virgin Islands gets its goods from Puerto Rico.
Well,
Puerto Rico can't even get the goods.
It may be a possibility, and I hope this is not the case. I hope that we didn't have someone who ran for the President of the United States and he does not actually know the places that he governs is more than just states, because he's so brilliant. Because he says states that it doesn't say United States and territories, maybe he doesn't know that he actually is the president of not only the U.S. Virgin Islands, but Guam.
You're not suggesting that because Puerto Rico and the various other territories are not his quote-unquote constituents and do not comprise his base, that the relief effort in those areas is predicated on that proposition or the lack thereof.
Attorney Ross,
yes.
You are assuming that he knows they exist. So it doesn't have anything to do with politics. It has to do with that he knows that it's the United States.
Well, fortunately, and very fortunately, the U.S. government is not just comprised of the 45th. There are multitudes of agencies that govern the United States of America, including its territories, and indeed, FEMA is on the ground in Puerto Rico. I don't know what action they're taking in the U.S. Virgin Islands because nobody's talking about it.
Well, I would dare to say that the 30% of the people who are gun-ho, no matter what the 45th says, they probably think they're in a foreign country when they go to Puerto Rico too. I'm not trying to be derogatory.
A golf course on Puerto Rico. You don't think he knew it was United States at that particular?
No.
Well, even if he doesn't, I mean, I'm sure that the rest of the cabinet.
Anybody that has to say, people need to understand, it's an island and it's around water and a lot of water. Fool, it's the Atlantic Ocean. Right. And the whole definition of island is land surrounded by water.
I think General Kelly knows that it's part of the United States. I think his cabinet knows that it's part of the United States.
I think they assumed that when he ran for president that he knew it was part of the United States. But we're making too many assumptions, and his ignorance is just bliss.
All right, so the situation on Puerto Rico, and quite frankly, we only have the benefit of whatever the various news agencies
because they don't have television.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's not that back and forth communication. There is no running water on Puerto Rico or in the U.S. Virgin Islands. There is no electricity in Puerto Rico or in the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Well,
there's no internet. Did you hear where FEMA told people in Puerto Rico to go sign up for their FEMA grants, subsidies, or whatever, to sign up via the internet? And the people were like, dude, we don't have electricity or internet.
The 45th got into, and you can't say a Twitter war because she doesn't have any Twitter, okay? Right. But he is basically maligning the mayor of San Juan, saying that they're ingracious, that they want everything done for them. Well, when you have your entire life wiped away in about a 48-hour, there is no. You are. She said, "We are dire. We're dying here."
Yes.
And he had no sensitivity to that, and in fact, he continued his Twitter war, even though she couldn't see it. She was actually on MSNBC, and one of the commentaries had to have her hear what it was because she still doesn't have TV. And she's actually speaking not just on behalf of San Juan.
They've accused her of not going to meetings.
Well,
FEMA meetings. Go ahead.
they wanted the mayors to write an invoice of what they need. And she said, are you kidding? She had 2 binders about 4 inches thick.
Well, I think this should resonate with this administration. The mayor has indicated that the regulations are mind-numbing and they need to cut the red tape. Well, why don't we take an executive order and disseminate the red tape so the people can get what they need?
Remember,
both in
they
Puerto Rico and, say it,
the U.S. Virgin
Thank
Islands,
you.
United States Virgin Islands. But you know what? The U.S. Comfort, which is a hospital ship,
Yes.
they just sent to the port today. I mean, yesterday.
sent to Puerto Rico or
Well,
sent to U.S. Virgin Islands?
sent to Port of Virgin Islands. Everything's coming from the Virgin Islands that then kind of supposed to trickle down to the U.S. Virgin Islands from
You mean
Puerto Rico.
everything's- okay,
From Puerto
okay,
Rico.
okay.
Now, the
Well,
Jones
there are
Act.
3.4 million people in Puerto Rico. There are only about 200,000, maybe 150,000.
Well,
Not that that has anything to do with it.
But 45 is worried about the debt that they already have. And we got to talk about the
He
debt.
started tweeting about that today?
No, he started tweeting about that days ago. We got to talk about the debt they owe before we start talking about
They're
the
indebted to Wall Street. They're indebted
to
because-
Wall Street, not to the
United
government.
States.
Exactly. And the other thing that was, it was like as if you were sticking a pin in the side of my brain.
Mm-hmm.
He originally, when asked about the U.S. Comfort, says, "Well, I talked to some of the American shipholders, and they're not in agreement with me lifting the Jones Act." You know how the Jones Act actually got lifted?
How is that?
Hillary Clinton.
Hillary!
Hillary Clinton
What
actually sent a message to those people that she knows and says, "Send the U.S. Comfort." That's when, boop, a light went on and he wanted to take the credit for it. And then all of a sudden, all of these ship owners who said that they didn't want him to lift the Jones Act, which, may I tell you, we've been holding on to these territories for almost 100 years, about 1917.
Right.
And this Jones Act was started back then. That
Which
says
means, yeah.
that you cannot port anything into Puerto Rico or the U.S. Virgin Islands that is not a U.S. made ship and not U.S. owned ship.
And
In
that-
other words, even if there are countries that want to bring or send aid, they cannot. Even if they wanted during the best of times, have foreign ships come over to bring money.
Well, that then starts to talk about the general demise of the economies of these territories.
We're
because
controlling
they're
it.
all in debt. They're all in substantial debt. They're all in substantial debt to Wall Street. And if they were able to participate in a free and capitalist system, maybe they
Well,
would be able to afford it a little
the
bit
fact
better.
is that we've owned the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico longer than we've owned Hawaii and Alaska. And Hawaii and Alaska are actually states. They were
Okay.
made states back in 1959. And we've had these territories along with Guam. I think it's the Midlands. And we keep forgetting with Guantanamo Bay, our place of torture. That's
Well, that's
it's
part of
connected.
Cuba.
It's part of Cuba,
Yeah.
but we have control of it, and they've
Right.
been wanting that land back for quite some
You mean
time.
Cuba?
Cuba.
All right.
I mean, because all before this Cuba embargoment's been going on, we've been on Guantanamo Bay for some time.
right.
But I mean that's the least of what we're talking about is that we own islands that are unoccupied. Then a lot of these islands were obtained after the Spanish War. But be that as it may, we're talking about United States territories. They don't get to vote.
Right.
They do have
Comprised of
United States citizens. The only difference is one island that they speak Spanish and English, and probably more speak Spanish because we got the island from Spain.
Makes
So
sense.
therefore, their language for hundreds of years has been Spanish. And on the Virgin Islands, they have that Caribbean accent as to the same thing between the French, the
All right,
British,
all right,
and
all
the
right,
Spanish
all
that
right,
own some of those. So we have actually U.S. Virgin Islands and you have British Virgin
right.
Islands. But we're talking about the United States citizens that they don't need a green card. They don't need to go through the 45th. And this is where I think some of the confusion may be. That some people figure that they speak Spanish, so they must be the same as the Mexicans. And because I've been hearing so much about the Mexicans. So sometimes I think when they hear
the
Spanish,
same conversation with
people
Puerto Rico?
are not telling. For some reason, I don't know that people don't understand that everybody that speaks Spanish is not from South America. That there are United
All
States
right,
citizens that speak Spanish.
Why don't we just try to assume that maybe that's not the case,
I hope
and
so.
that indeed most of America recognizes that Puerto Rico is a United States territory with U.S. citizens, that the U.S. Virgin Islands has U.S. in front of it for a reason. But how is it that, as the mayor of San Juan said, do they get through all the regulations and the red tape and allow the food,
If
the
we
water
can keep the
to move forward?
45th focused on the task at hand and stop worrying about who's kneeling at football games, maybe, just maybe, we can keep him in line with people that are suffering rather than riling up his base. If it's not somebody that's cheering him on as the best thing since Hitler, he doesn't understand. And routing his base is more important than feeding people that are starving, feeding people that are crying and dying. Actually, we have hospitals that just today they got electricity.
He did good in Houston and Florida.
Well, he owns a house in Florida.
He used to own a golf course in Puerto Rico, or maybe he still does.
Well, no, actually, he doesn't own that land anymore. But it doesn't matter. It's the United States.
Yeah.
And I just dare say that he ran for president and didn't know actually the land that covered or comprised the United States. That there are territories along with states. And right now we have our U.S. Virgin Islands and our Puerto Rican territories, our citizens dying because they don't have food and water. Now there are on the port of Puerto Rico are hundreds of what do you call it, the truckloads?
The tankers
that have food, water, medicine, everything they need.
But also recognize, I understand that a lot of those tankers are having them goods that were coming there anyway that are really not, let's say, might be clothes or things that stock stores. But the necessity,
right now they don't even have clothes.
Exactly.
But the reality of it is today is that the 45th decided to go into a Twitter war against the San Juan's mayor, who was just telling the public. She was she didn't even, I'm telling you, it's misogyny because he kept giving praise to the governor of Puerto Rico, who was a male.
Well, the
but he kept pouncing on the
governor
female.
keeps saying you're doing a great job, 45.
I
don't know how he can say that.
That's what the governor said because I keep watching. I hear 45 say that's what the governor said.
Oh.
Okay? But you have to understand, there's more than just the mayor of San Juan.
There are multiple mayors.
She is speaking for the other mayors because their towns are so remote that they're more worried about their people than they are filling out an invoice. She actually showed it looked like a 4-inch binder.
Wow.
That FEMA sent to them to fill out to
regulations and red tape.
Now they're saying
I think
in a very air-conditioned
executive order, wipe out the regulations and the red tape. Anyway,
they're standing in a very air-conditioned convention center, FEMA, and I know that we must take care of the people who's coming there to do the work, but they're getting food shipped into that convention center, air-conditioned, sleeping well, while the people outside of there are dying.
Maybe we need to break it down. What does it mean when you don't have running water? It means that your sewage systems aren't working. It means that the potential outbreak of disease. What does it mean when you don't have electricity?
People are actually dying that are in the hospitals because they don't have electricity to run the dialysis for those who are on monitors.
That's what kind of situation we're talking about.
Or if you have insulin that needs to stay refrigerated.
Right.
I mean, it's, people are standing in line for bags of ice for 6 hours. How long? Puerto Rico not only is on an island, it's on we call places on an island for a reason because it's probably hot. Some days it could be between 80 and 90 degrees.
Right.
How long can they keep, even if you get through that 6-hour line to get your minimal of 2 bags of ice, how fast can you get back to, some people walked for miles because they had no gas for their cars.
That seems like...
How long can you walk with these 2 bags and think it's not going to be water?
That seems like a gerbil spin. Same with gas. I understand they're driving around the island looking for gas. But
And running out of gas.
Exactly.
Well,
so.
today I do know that many of the gas stations are reopened. Well, this
Very
is
good.
day 11.
Oh, okay.
So on day 11, let's think of how many people